If there's one single topic that always rises to the top of every conversation that I have with parents, it's technology. How to keep it balanced. Questions like, when is my child old enough for a smartphone? Or, if I restrict them indefinitely on a flip phone, will that be enough, and how long will that be possible? How do we separate the real utilitarian needs of technology from the addictive pull of entertainment? And what if we've already handed our kids a smartphone? How do we find balance now for them and for ourselves? We live in a world where having a smartphone seems to be required for daily life, but there are better options than just a flip phone for life. We're going to tackle these questions and more on this episode of Basecamp Live.
Mountains. We all face them as we seek to influence the next generation. Get equipped to conquer the challenges, summit the peak, and shape exceptionally thoughtful, compassionate, and flourishing human beings. We call it Ancient Future Education for raising the next generation. Welcome to Basecamp Live. Now your host, Davies Owens.
Welcome to yet another episode of Basecamp Live. Davies Owens, your host, here with you. If you've listened for any time, you know that I am a technology guy. I stood in line for the first iPhone back in June of 2007. Little did I or the world know what was about to be unleashed there. And it's not all been great. There have been some real challenges. I'm so grateful for this conversation with Chris Kasper. Chris has become a great friend. He's a passionate entrepreneur and a leader in creating healthy technology. He's a founder of Techless. It's a startup that created the Wise Phone. It's a pure and simple phone for intentional people. Techless is on a mission to reclaim, I love this, 100 billion life hours from screen time for people to regain their lives, to wonder and live and imagine. Techless is Chris's third startup. He's previously designed and done film work. He's been nationally recognized, and even his work has been aired on ESPN Super Bowl game day coverage. He and his wife, Sierra, are joyfully raising their 5 kids and live life for a deeper purpose, following Christ and helping us sort through the many blessings but challenges of technology. I had the privilege of being on Chris's podcast recently, and I'll put links to that in the Basecamp Live show notes as well. Before we jump to this interview with Chris, I want to just say thank you as always to those who come alongside us as partners on the journey of raising the next generation. Wilson Hill Academy and their great work providing online resources for classical education, Life Architects coaching, the important work they do helping young people and adults to sort through their ability to self-understand their aptitudes and their abilities that God has given them. The Champion Group and their Feed the Need, a fantastic fundraising program. The Herzog Foundation, wonderful partners who provide 40 plus different trainings. They're free around the country for Christian educators. And of course, our own partnership with our sister organization, Zipcast, and the great work that continues to happen in schools around the country. By the way, if you're listening and your school is not a part of Zipcast, it is not too late. We have a whole crop of new schools joining us in early 2026. Go to zipcast.media and learn how to jump on board for the remainder of the school year. And then in light of the conversation we're having with Chris has been generous enough to make the Wise Phone available to Basecamp Live listeners at a discount. There's also links in the show notes if you're interested in learning more after you hear this interview with Chris on the Wise Phone and the great work that he's doing to help raise up a generation to live more in an analog type of way. I think we just need to reclaim the analog world a bit, which is what Chris is so passionate about. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Chris Kasper. Chris, welcome to Basecamp Live.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
It's so good to have you, Chris. We have just recently gotten to know each other, and we are, every time we talk, it's obviously we blink an eye, 3 hours has gone by. So I just had the joy of being on your podcast.
Sign of great friendship is great conversation.
It's a great conversation. Well, for folks that don't know you, I know they've heard your formal bio, but just give us a little bit of your story. I mean, your amazing business your family was a part of, and then you kind of got wind of a totally crazy idea of launching a phone company, but back people up. How did all this begin for you?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of being part of a 5th-gen family business here in town. We're sitting in Shiner, Texas.
It's a beautiful part of Texas, yeah.
And at one point I had this kind of law of diminishing returns where I could have kept making money within the business, but I wanted something more meaningful and purposeful to do with my life. And I dove in and launched a tech company called Techless. And we make this phone called Wise Phone. It's this healthy phone. And it helps people reclaim their lives from screen time and all that stuff that just kind of sucks away our souls. Yeah. And so I've been on a journey for 6-7 years now here.
Yeah, I mean, like wake up in the morning, like, I don't know, what am I doing today? Let's see. I'm going to go create a new phone. I mean, that is let's go climb Mount Everest while we're at it. That's a pretty big deal.
I was naive when we started, but it's been good.
So take us back to when you realized there's just a fundamental need for a different kind of phone. What was the impetus, the birth of all of this?
Yeah, so it really started, I guess there's lots of things that added up to it, but there was this moment where I had foster kids. I had 10 and 13-year-old girls, and we've had 7 kids come and go in our house. But the caseworker dropped them off and said, don't let them near anything that looks like a smartphone. And we went from not having any kids at that moment to now the classic conundrum that every single parent and educator listening to this podcast right now is faced is, do I become a jerk and a stick in the mud and just rip away this thing that they're used to and entitled to? Or do I just let them wander into the sunset of evil that is built into the devices? And that was this moment where I kind of started this journey of like, wait a second, why does it have to be so binary? Isn't there something in between? And there wasn't anything. And I said, okay, if there's nothing out there and every single parent I know that cares about their kids is asking this question, maybe there's something, maybe we should build something. So that was kind of the start.
I'm going to get a shirt printed with the "Don't let your kid wander into the sunset of evil." That is awesome. I love that statement.
Just blood red sunset, you know.
With phones all over the place.
Yeah.
So what you're onto is so needed. And I in my years, folks who listen to the podcast know that we live as humans. I think our natural tendency is to kind of go black and white, all or none. And so you definitely see this perceived, which way do I go? Am I going to be, to your point, kind of that I need to make sure my kids, have sort of worked their technology challenges out under my roof, and I'll kind of give them a smartphone early on, or maybe they did the Jonathan Haidt thing and I was like, wait till 8, but now we're going to give them to 8. Or you've got, especially in classical Christian schools, it's like we are literally going to be Amish and we don't care. Like, here's the 2 cans with a string tied between it. That's your phone. Figure it out. And when you're 30, we might have another conversation. So there's obviously a real danger there. Let's actually start there, because just to kind of level set, I don't think anybody listening is like, it's not a big deal. Or I think everybody knows it's a big deal, but just how serious is this problem as you see it in terms of just tech? I mean, to start a company called Techless, obviously, Tech more was not good. So yeah.
Well, and honestly, it's a play off of Paul when he says, I must become less so that he may become more. It's playing in that technology has a place in our life, but it needs to be put into its proper place, and it has grown beyond the bounds of what it should be doing in our life. So that's the impetus behind the name. It's not anti-tech.
Right.
It's just less because we need less right now. It's invaded. And how serious is it? I had a blank page moment where I could have done anything. I could have retired at age 28 and lived on an island and just lived it up. I could have. God was good in that sense. But I legitimately just asked the question of what is the greatest threat to the greatest 2 commandments? Loving God, loving others. And after months of prayer and research, I came down to the conclusion that our technology, and particularly within that world, our phones, were the number one threat to our souls, to living out the greatest 2 commandments. And that was 6 years ago. And I think it's become obvious now. When I first started 6-7 years ago, it didn't make sense to a lot of people why we were doing what we were doing. This was before, when Facebook was still cool and good, and, but the world's changed a little. But that's how serious it is. It's literally redefining who we are as humans at the fundamental level.
So the idea of I want my kids to kind of be able to try this under my roof, or I don't want them to be unprepared for the modern world. I mean, what do you say to that parent who it's a reasonable concern. We don't want our kids to literally have only seen a typewriter and they head off to college. At the same time, it is a bit of a snake in a box you're handing them. So how help paint some of the pictures from what you're seeing of, things like doom scrolling. I mean, there's just some unbelievably powerful, addictive things that are coming at us and our children that maybe we don't know how serious this really is.
Yeah, I think the most dangerous part of it is that it's all on evil by default. And so there's so many assumptions built into the phone, into social media, that we don't question, we don't think, we just accept. And if you really think intentionally, like when we built Wise Phone, we spent 2 years in R&D and user experience and research and design, and before we even launched the product and sold it. Those 2 years, the harder challenge, yes, technically it was Herculean, it was hard. We had 18 engineers working for a while, but the harder part of that problem was actually unpacking, uncovering, and redefining all of the design assumptions that are built into our devices. And that's what's so difficult, is you're fighting this uphill battle of just like perpetual evil or just unintentional or decisions that were made to monetize attention or pad the pockets of a venture capitalist you just don't see what's under the table. That's what's so challenging, is that there's just so many perverse incentives behind the scenes and so much science and so much brain hijacking, and you don't even know about it. That's the greatest threat here.
Which, if you hear that, you're thinking, well, why would one ever give that to their child? And I mean, I often, you and I have talked about this, and the stats are there. I mean, it's not all that different from like cocaine. I mean, or crack. I mean, it's literally, and I think time will tell. We're going to come back and go, and they let kids smoke in the 40s, and that was a really dumb idea.
And Coca-Cola used to have cocaine in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy things that we thought were okay. And I mean, isn't that your impression that we're going to look back on this thing in 5-10 years and go, what on earth were people thinking?
Yeah, now we've learned. I think a parallel that I have, you use some of the parallels of unhealthy, smoking, fast food.
It's just a crack pipe. They only do it for 15 minutes after school. It'll be fine, right?
Yeah. And there's going to be, I feel like our generation, a lot of times people are like, hey, my parents never had the talk with me, or they did, and it was one time. There was never this really healthy, robust dialogue and conversation around sexuality.
Right.
And there's consequences for us and our generation now because of that. The overarching regret of this next generation is going to be parents and technology, and people are going to look back and just be like, man, mom and dad didn't love me enough to lean into this.
Wow. And they were themselves equally strung out on it. I mean, this is not a case of, kids are into bad bubble gum over here and we don't chew it. Like, everybody is swimming in this techno cesspool, if you will, right now. And so everybody really needs to be techless in a sense, and yet we're in the world today. So that's again, you're walking a razor's edge. And as we unpack this, I think it's very easy to just go negative, and we could spend the rest of the time just pounding through this will kill you quick type of a story.
Which will make for great headlines and great engagement, but it's not the purpose of what we're doing here in the world. So.
And this is what I appreciate, because a lot of our listeners rightfully are angry, and they see that the damage is caused, and they see the neighbor down the street whose kid, can't even look you in the eye because they've been on a device. Like, we all know there's a problem. And I think the natural human tendency is to jump on the pendulum and swing way over here. And, let's go full, 1820s here. What's the danger of going too far into a truly techless world? And that's sort of, I just want my kids to have, we've got the one flip phone here in the kitchen, and that's all the tech they're going to see. How is that, a problem in and of itself, the other direction?
Yeah, so in that binary, you have hyperconnected and then you have disconnected, or the Luddite version. And honestly, I'm a big fan of Amish. I know some of them, and when you talk with them, they are more human. They're present. They look you in the eyes. They're sincere. They're real. They're resilient. They can work through hard things. Like, there's something beautiful and wonderful there, but they have lost relevance in today's society, in today's culture. And if we're called to be salt of the earth, there's no sprinkling here when you totally disconnect. Mm-hmm. There is no spreading out the flavor. You're not even being the aroma of Christ in a sense. So we forfeit, if we totally disconnect, we forfeit our positions of power, which we are called to. There's a divine mandate for us to step into the world and to rule, in a sense, in very meaningful ways. And we just give that up entirely if we check out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fragmentation and the inability. We're talking about this on your podcast. Just a generation today that can't think independently and are just pawns of big tech algorithms that are being manipulated in various directions. But again, if you're on this other side of going pure Amish, there are advantages if you lived in an Amish community, you never chose to go out and deal with the real world. So, I mean, everybody listening is pretty much trying to be in the world, but not of the world. So that was obviously part of what led you to create the Wise Phone. So just go ahead and explain what it is, because folks are, so what is a phone that is in the world, but not of the world? What does that even look like?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, and this is an overarching philosophy. So we're not just working on just a phone. There's other tech we have in NQ, but you have the hyperconnected world, you have the Luddite world. That's the binary most people see. We see a separate path down the middle that is what we call the healthy tech way. And that is parsing out, hey, within a device, within an app, within a specific function of technology, what's the good, what's the bad? And there's literally a continuum of kind of like toxic for you to healthy for you. and there's a fuzzy gray middle, but there are things that are more healthy for you and things that are more toxic for you. And so we asked that question. We've spent years asking that question. We've been building the thing. And in a nutshell, what we think a healthy phone is a device that has the fundamental basic tools: calling, texting, maps, clock, calculator, the things you need to navigate in the world. And it does not have some of the most toxic stuff: social media, streaming entertainment, any access to explicit content whatsoever. And in the fuzzy middle, we have things that could be good for you, that help you get around in today's world, practical tools. So blood glucose meters, medical stuff, banking apps, some productivity tools. We've even gone so far as to allow music streaming, because scientific research shows, hey, maybe you could check out and isolate yourself, but at the same time, there's some positive things that come from that. And so you can sort of see we have the two ends of the spectrum, and we're dealing in that world.
Which is what I think everyone's been looking for. And the folks that are buying these phones are not just parents looking for solutions for children. I mean, these are a lot of adults saying, I need to take my life back, right?
Yeah. 80%. We designed the phone for kids. I designed it for my 10 and 13-year-old foster daughters. And I'll tell you here's how we landed on this. We did a lot of research about what didn't work. Disney came out with a phone, you never even heard of it. And kids' phones don't work because kids don't want kids' phones, period. So a clear mandate was that this must be dignified. It must look like a smartphone. It must feel like a smartphone. It must be sophisticated. So we hired Josh Banco, who was the guy that made Apple iPad, Gen 1 Apple iPad team lead. And then Eddie Lobanovsky, who is the #1 UX designer in the world, rated on Dribble.com, like just the top dudes. And they came in and made this very sleek, sophisticated device. Well, 80% of our sales ended up being to adults. So, and it totally transforms their lives. So yes, it's safe for kids, but our primary group are aspiring digital minimalists, or not even that, just people that want to reclaim their life. A lot of intellectual professionals, people that value creativity, writers, authors, that type.
Yeah, who want to take their life back. And I think there's a lot of adults that are hitting that, hitting a point where this is just too much, and we recognize that. I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm curious because the question I hear all the time is like, well, what age is the right age to give my kid a phone? And so much of that would be, some of it has to do with the age and maturity of your child, but I think often of the Marshall McLuhan famous quote that, the medium is the message. And there's a point at which the technology itself changes the way that we engage it, the way we think about it, and it can actually, form us just because you're looking at a screen at whatever age. So why don't we take a break? I want to come back and just think about, is there a point that you would say is still too young for a child, even though this careful Wise Phone is inappropriate at you mentioned middle school. So we'll see if that's where you go with it. But let's take a quick break and we'll come back. Be curious your thoughts. During this short break, I have a special invitation to all school leaders, administrators, and teachers. I want you to imagine for a moment stepping away from your everyday routine at school and diving deep into the rich foundations of Christian education, surrounded by world-class scholars, seasoned classroom teachers, and administrative experts with years of experience running schools with a lot of wisdom to share. That's exactly what the Herzog Foundation's Institute is offering. I've had the joy of serving as a training coach for the last few years, leading their 2.5-day training on spiritual formation and another one on parent engagement. They offer close to 50 unique training events ranging from board governance to marketing to classroom best practices. They even offer a training on how to teach the great books. And the best part of all, well, thanks to the generosity of the Herzog Foundation, these training events, including lodging, are completely free for Christian educators. Institutes are located around the country in beautiful locations, including at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and the Reagan Library in Santa Barbara. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Check out the details at theherzogfoundation.com. If you're seeking an education that helps your child thrive academically and spiritually, Wilson Hill Academy has spent years developing a model that I want you to know about. In their free guide, you'll see how their thoughtfully sequenced curriculum prepares students for college and how a biblical worldview helps them understand the world around them with clarity, and how their discussion-based classes teach them to think critically, not just what to think. You'll also discover how their teachers equip students to live purposefully for Christ. With accredited live online classes, your child can learn from master teachers anywhere with an internet connection, all within a community that has transformed families like yours. Download their free guide today at wilsonhillacademy.com/guide or in the link in our show notes. Well, Chris, right before the break, I was thinking many folks listening are thinking, okay, black and white was a lot easier. Just say no, never do the phone. And you're coming in here and saying there is actually a way to take the bad stuff off the phone, allow it to be a pure utilitarian device. And by the way, I remember years ago, a good friend of mine in Atlanta, right when the smartphone came out in 2007, got one for his daughter who was probably in 6th grade. And he said, yeah, I need a way to call her after ballet practice. And it was just sort of, and he later came back and said, dang, I gave her a snake in a box. Like, I had no idea. I was just trying to solve a problem. I need to talk to her and communicate with her. And you're saying, sure, of course you need to talk to your child, but you don't need to give her unmitigated evil at the same time.
Yeah.
So to the question before the break, I guess, is there a concern at all about just a piece of technology in the hands of a young person? And kind of where do you balance that before you even get to what apps and things are on the device?
Yeah. So there's this function of even a tool has its impact upon us.
Yeah.
There's a book, John Dyer wrote, The Garden in the City. It's a wonderful book on technology, and it talks about, and in it, he uses this analogy of a shovel. And if you use a shovel, it will affect your body. Mm-hmm. Like it gives you calluses on your hands, like you grow muscles in your shoulders, and your tool impacts you.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
Non-negotiably, smartphones and social media and all those things, the tool impacts us in a crazy way. It is a tool. It is something that we can use, but it has consequences. And I mean, I think it's obvious to us now, social media is the impact is selfishness, laziness, echo chambers, lack of critical thinking. Like there's consequences to us in soaking in that and using it because the algorithm's designed to inspire us in all the wrong ways, or to activate us. And so there are consequences to the tools that we use. And so we want to think about what those are. And even good tools,
right.
Even a microphone. We're talking right now through microphones. That's good. But
sure.
There's an impact to churches. Back when microphones were invented, all of a sudden now a church can grow to be larger than the consequences of a church where it was just a singular pastor who could speak to 100, 300 people. The microphone affected the way that church, in fact, and interacts and defines what it is. So there's always consequences. So you just have to critically ask, what are the consequences of this specific thing?
Well, and to that point, there's maybe we could almost have, there are multiple generations of technology. I mean, when the first earliest phone came out, it was just a phone. And then you kind of got into this Palm Pilot stage where we kind of do calendaring and a few other things. And now we've got kind of Gen 3 that's actually embedding social media and algorithms. I mean, that is a whole nother level of nastiness that wasn't there. But, it'd be interesting even back to whatever year that would have been, 2003, and you go by your BlackBerry thing. I mean, even that was a pretty dialed down by today's standards, and yet it was still potentially something that would, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a bit on what I could see a parent saying. You're still giving them a electronic device, and whatever it is in children, that if it beeps, flashes, and has buttons, it's going to be immediately attractive, even if it's not all the way to social media. So I guess, is there, how do you walk that line? Because you want kids to go for the book and go for outside play before they even go for the phone. So you've kind of, I mean, how do you guide families on when that moment is, I guess?
Well, like what's the right age?
Yeah, I mean, basically.
So when you're talking about when to give your kid a practical tool, not an entertainment device, oh my gosh.
Oh, you see a difference, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, I mean, if you're listening, and trust me, I'm a parent. I got 6 kids here, okay? So today, I'll just be honest. I'll be super vulnerable. We had a meeting today, and I hit the play button for my kids this morning on a movie on Schoolhouse Rock because we needed desperately 45 minutes for my wife and I to meet for something. But if that is a trend, like that's not need, that's want. You as a parent, like suck it up. Don't give your kid entertainment devices. Okay, but back to that question of like when's the right age? Need, not want. So when does your kid need something? Not when do they want it? Because they will want.
They want ice cream starting it,
Exactly. Yeah. Like
year one, I mean.
You are the boundary for them in defining what they need, not want. And then what's their character age? Mm-hmm. Not what is their actual age, because that doesn't matter. What is the age of their character? What can you trust them with or not? And then this is going to be a very offensive number for a lot of people because I know the statistics and I know how many of you guys have gotten phones for everybody and the ship has sailed, whatever. I can keep going. But like I've thought about it, and like around age 14 is when you start actually needing a phone.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a way to ease into that. Like, hey, pre-14, if you're going to go away from the house, you could have a family phone that you all share. It's not theirs. It's like, when is this me possessed thing? Like until they start driving. I don't know. There's like this age in that range, and that is not what anybody does right now. So I know I'm stepping on everyone's toes.
No, our audience is going, thank goodness you found a sane guy to interview about this. No. In fact, we'd go further. We would say, flip phones to 40, whatever. I think.
P.S. Flip phones are like totally terrible. There's no restrictions on them. I mean, there's some lies built into the flip phone form factor.
Well, but to the point, there's just that it's binary. It's like, it's a crazy smartphone. Because what do we remember? Let's bring back the 90s. It had to be the flip phone was the answer for all. But to the point at hand, actually, as you're talking, Chris, it'd be interesting to build a chart. It's sort of like, what are the utilitarian needs? Back to my friend, I got to pick my daughter up from ballet. I need to communicate with her. That equals what? Like phone, voice to voice, or text. That would check box. Communication has happened. I don't need anything else. Yeah. I mean, like, so how, as you look at utilitarian, you mentioned maps, like if you just stripped it down to like, you ought to be able to get to like 21 on this. Like, I mean, what is the real, because that's the excuse. My kid, quote, needs this phone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So really, that's why I said 14 is like, I mean, and at the end of the day, they can use other people's phones to call if they need. But there's a little bit of dignity to having, like, I'm giving some grace here. But yeah, I mean, when you're driving, that's a key moment where you need access to, transportation and, maps, whole 9 yards. So that's a critical moment. I mean, honestly, I will say to hit parents between the eyes, this is actually an excuse that we use. This is the number one excuse I get for adults using the devices. I need blank on my smartphone.
Right.
And the truth is you don't. I run a tech company with people in 6 different countries, and I'm hyper connected and up to my eyeballs in AI. And I have a Wise phone that does right now I'm testing a phone, and my primary phone right now has all of 7 apps on it.
That's amazing.
And I'm running the company. So what do you need? You don't need email on your phone. You can go use it on your computer.
People's minds right now.
I mean, but just like unpack that question critically.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Like literally dissect this quote phone that's not a phone. It's a bazillion other things. And then, because I think that is the kid in all of us adults. I maybe say it this way. I mean, and I'm putting myself in this because I think we're all in some form. We've all been, hijacked by these devices. And there's that sense of, I've had a long day. This is kind of my little go-to, my indulgent moment. I'm just going to go to Facebook and sort of flip through some fun things, let my, just kind of decompress. And so I think this is, again, the problem with this conversation is that it's easy to talk about the kids, but it really is us. And therefore, what do we really need? I think is a really practical and fair question. I love the idea. So email, you can get that on the desktop. You don't actually need that thing pinging you constantly.
Yeah, I mean, categorically, I'll just say this. Productivity tools, work stuff, I have swapped entirely to my computer, and I love it.
Wow.
I do not use it on my phone, and I carry a laptop around if I need to. But what it forces me to do is I have to go to my device and I have to check into work instead of it following me around in my pocket. And psychologically, mentally, it creates space to be more present when I'm there.
Makes sense.
And so as much as possible, I offload off the device. Right. I mean, there's a few things like my robot vacuum, it needs an app, right?
And as was that, again, the pushback in quite honestly, a lot of times it's schools that are the worst culprits, not a lot of our classical Christian schools, but the idea was, hey, our athletic group is all on GroupMe and I have to have the app in order to participate. I mean, so there's like the pragmatics of a lot of schools force parents into that smartphone only app-based environment. But what you're talking about, your system will allow any app? Is that, can you pretty much pull any app down into the Wise Phone if you wanted to?
No, we're curating them. And we actually have a very real tension with some of our users of my school requires this thing.
Right.
And when we look at that thing, there's backdoor browsers and there's weird stuff that shouldn't be on there. And we say no.
Right.
And we tell them, you should tell your school that is absolutely bogus and corrupt and they should change their system.
Wow.
And so we're in the middle of that battle.
I'm sure.
And it gets messy sometimes.
Well, and that's like the perennial problem with parents, because we were talking about this on your podcast. I mean, the cat and mouse game is never going to work. Can we build a bigger, better, faster mousetrap and trap the kid in it? But to your point, there's all kinds of backdoors. There's fake apps that get downloaded that look like this, but they're really that. And so, you've got your work cut out for you, because you've got to. So you have people saying, "I need this. This would be an app I'd like to have approved because of this." Work or school excuse. And
we're the gatekeepers of that. We're the bad guys in a sense, or the good guys, depending on. But I feel like at the end of the day, people are actually pretty at peace with the decisions that we've made. There's a few that feel like people just don't understand. For example, some people really want the LinkedIn app, and we're like, that's a social media cesspool. Like, we don't want to play that game. Go do it on your computer if you want. But at the end of the day, I think kids and parents actually want a backstop of someone with some boldness and integrity to actually draw the line.
Well, and that's the problem. Like, I have a light phone, and it's great, but it is so stripped down. You can't to use it. I've had to treat it as a second phone, and I'll kind of go off the grid and kind of switch over to it. But it is so anemic, you can't really function for long. The Wise Phone is built for a full replacement of the smartphone.
Yeah, and actually that was when we first launched Wise Phone 1. It was a minimalist phone. It was a direct competitor to Light Phone, and we, had very similar functionality. It was an easier user experience because it was, normal touchscreen, not ink, stuff like that. Long story short, we realized that was the dynamic. It was kind of a second phone, or it was only for the extreme digital minimalist, or, it was like 1%, 2% of society. And we said, we could do better than this. So Wise Phone 2 fundamentally shifted from minimal to healthy. That meant we allow third-party apps that are carefully curated. So we have 500 apps we've approved.
Wow.
We've had 10,000 submitted, but we've approved 500, and that means you can use it permanently, long-term, sustainably as your primary and singular only device, and live with it. And anyone can do it, and if you're willing to get over the excuses,
right.
And there's a couple valid excuses, but for the most part, we've drawn the line in a way to where it's like, if you're not interested, then that's on you.
Right. But no excuse if I've got to keep my smartphone over here to, again, even as adults, like, but I still pull the iPad out and I can, do my doom scrolling till 3 a.m. if that's what, we can't save people from stupid.
Totally. And then, you know what? All along, we've said that Wise Phone is a wonderful tool, right? It takes the cookies out of your pocket and puts them in a locked cabinet to where you have to go to the cookies.
Right.
But you can still go get cookies.
Sure. Right.
And so it's not the silver bullet. At the end of the day, the stuff you're doing and education and teaching people what's good and healthy and developing that appetite for something wonderful, that's the silver bullet.
Right.
But we're a piece of that puzzle.
But it is a piece of the puzzle, and this is why I'm excited about this conversation, because, again, it's been a very binary solution set out there in the minds of so many people. So why don't we take another quick break? I want to come back and continue talking about this, because there's certainly more questions in terms of how does this get implemented practically in the lives of modern families? What are some of the pushbacks that people have had to think through and work through? And ultimately, how do you convince your teen who's already been on their smartphone for 5 years that things are going to move over? I bet that's a challenge. We'll be right back, and love to hear your thoughts on that.
Every school year tells a story. Some chapters are easy to see, like the first day of class or graduation at the end. But the real heart of a story is often written in the quieter pages. A science experiment that sparks wonder, the decision to slow down and memorize a psalm, the way a teacher walks alongside a student who's struggling. Those are the moments parents long to understand. They spark questions like, how do I nurture that same sense of wonder at home? What simple rhythms can make God's word a part of our family's everyday routine? How do I encourage perseverance in my child when the work gets hard? Zipcast helps schools bring those quieter pages to light. Each week, families receive a short 10 to 12 minute episode that pairs local updates from their own school leaders with syndicated insights from trusted national experts in both Christian parenting and education. Parents can easily listen anywhere on the go, on the drive to practice, while cooking dinner, or during a quiet walk. It's not another notice in an inbox, it's a voice that brings encouragement, clarity, and perspective. And in every episode, parents not only hear what's happening at their school and why it matters, but also gain practical wisdom that connects the school story to the home. Nearly 100 schools are already using Zipcast this year, and beginning in the fall or winter isn't too late. It can actually be the best time to start. If you're a school leader, your school's story deserves to be clearly heard. Visit zipcast.media to learn more.
School leaders, if you have ever wondered how to make school fundraising truly effective while being meaningful and mission-driven, join us at Advance. It's an event that's being run by the good folks at the Champion Group. The Advance is an April 8th through 10th, 2026 event in Greensboro, North Carolina. And here's the best part. It's completely free to attend. You just have to cover travel and lodging. Advance is for heads of schools, board directors, and leaders who feel the pressure of raising big dollars without losing sight of their calling. At Advance, you're going to find tools and training and encouragement while connecting with peers from across the country, learning from top development experts, and leaving with real-world strategies that you can take home and use right away. Plus, every attendee receives a complimentary development evaluation and review. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Register today. The details are in the show notes for this episode. Chris, this is probably one of those things, we talked about dieting. I could see where people are quick to say, yes, I should not eat all that cholesterol. And yes, I should stop drinking the 5 Diet Cokes a day.
New Year's is coming up.
New Year's is coming. You know, I know I'm on my phone a little too much, but you know the kind of hard day I have at work and my kids, and back to your, you know, maybe I just need a little pacifier moment. Let them go do that thing. I got to do my thing. Yeah, balance is important, but but ultimately you're playing with fire. And so what you're recommending for a lot of folks would mean a seismic shift in the way they're engaging with technology in their home life. How have you seen families navigate that kind of retrofitting, and what are some of the challenges they run into, especially with older children? Yeah,
so families, I have to think about that as an individual level. I can very predictably tell you the experience when people hop into using Wise Phone. First, it's like super excited. You open the box, it smells good. You know, we package our phone. It's just, you know, wonderful new tech, and you're like aspirational, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, a few days in, holy smokes, I can't do this. This thing that I'm used to. And like literally people pull out their phones and look at them, and they like hold their hand out, and then they like put their phone back in their pocket because they can't do this.
Where's
stuff.
The cookie jar?
Exactly. That muscle memory triggers. And we actually charted this out. And then, but I can guarantee after about 30 days, feelings of peace and freedom are just universal.
Wow.
Like transforming, actually life-changing, like sustainable difference here. But there's definitely a valley of you have to find some new systems and processes and ways of doing things and communicating, and like, so there's some hiccups along with it, but that anything meaningful, it takes effort, and there's something to do there. So that's kind of the classic individual journey. Family journey, it depends. If it's one person or mom and dad, a lot of times parents get it before their kids do, so they kind of follow that trajectory. But my favorite is when an entire family swaps over. And that's happened. And we've had entire community swap over. We've had convents of nuns. We've had schools. We've had, the group.
Convents of nuns.
Yeah. Literally, we sold 18 or 22 phones. A whole convent bought Wise phones. And we're like, let's do it.
Get the nuns off the smartphone.
I thought it was pretty awesome, honestly.
That's a great story.
But yeah, I think there's these just real moments of realization of, wait, there's something sweet that we are missing, and you are a frog in the boiling pot and you didn't realize it until after you hopped out and you're like, wait, it feels cooler out here. And there's just richer relationship moments. I mean, legitimately, I can almost guarantee it that you're going to Jesus more, you're going to read more, you're going to have a more sense of humanness to you.
Well, as we've talked about, especially, well, for all of us, but especially with children, young folks, teenagers in particular, I mean, their identity is bound up in their peers and in community. I mean, this guy studied sociology. So I was like, why would people join an inner city gang? Because they love to kill people? No, because they want so desperately to be accepted and to be involved. And so when you make a migration off of social media, which is basically what you're doing, you are abandoning or cutting off their link to their community as they see it. How is that navigated? I have thoughts, but I mean, what would you say to that family? Is like, you're asking my kid to basically cut their leg off. I mean, that's kind of a pretty big request.
So it is a big request. I'm not going to nullify. And yes, it's huge. In fact, I think the reason I started Techless was because it hit our relationship with God, our relationship with others, and our identity. Like all three of those, that trifecta of relationship with self, like that is just smack dab right between the forehead. Don't downplay it. I would highly encourage you, if you want a proactive thing to do, is go do it with other families, so that we are doing this together. You're not the oddball, and that might be, depending on your community, what it looks like. But hands down, we found great amounts of success when it's like 2, 3 families, I mean, that's just hands down
Makes total sense.
The way to do it because of this. And then you restructure your rhythms, your way of interacting, your new social norms. And I can tell you, guaranteed that this is actually what they want. So yes, you might feel like you're chopping my leg off or whatever that kids would, but I've talked to enough kids, hundreds of kids, and done surveys and polls and stuff that they actually would prefer this world. But if they're the only ones, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. What I love about many listening are in classical Christian schools and traditional schools that are making very intentional, asking for intentional commitments on the part of parents. I mean, this is happening more and more every year, every month, where they'll do things like the Postman Pledge, where they will say, hey, welcome to our school. Your kids are going to wear a uniform. And by the way, we're going to all sign this pledge together. It's like nobody gets smartphone technology until whatever it is for that school, 5th grade or 8th grade. What I love about this is like, we might just want to extend this straight on through 12th grade, and it's going to be now we're going to switch to a device that fulfills all those urgent utilitarian needs, and you just got to protect childhood straight through and maybe even into forever. I mean, why would you ever need to, when do you have to be on social media? Maybe because you work for a marketing company? I mean,
to sell something,
right.
which tells you
like, maybe that's not great. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is, as I'm saying this, I'm like, this is like completely mind-blowing idea. Like, could you live your life and never, for people, it's just such the air we breathe. I mean, to live in a world where it's just a utilitarian device. You don't go get all excited about your refrigerator. I mean, it's just that you go there because you need something to stay cold. Your phone is literally so you can call somebody. It's that simple.
Yeah. And I'll just throw this out there, like technology has always been magical, right? Even the bad tech for a moment, for a season. And if you take the magic off of the phone, then you're going to find magic elsewhere in the world. And that's a beautiful thing.
Which is exactly right. I mean, it's just back to I've said it on your podcast. You can't just remove the vice without reintroducing a more beautiful virtue. And those time that is spent. It's speaking about time that is saved, because this is a lot of if you were to take that, regroup on a Friday night and do game night or recoup time, you've actually measured that. So talk about this, some of the research you've done on actually, life hours, as you call it, that have been rediscovered.
Yeah, so screen time is what Apple measures, right? And that's time on a screen. We decided to coin the phrase life hours. And what we're measuring, this is literally our company's purpose. We want to give the world back 100 billion life hours. And these are hours that people would have spent on screen time instead, and they're watching cat videos and makeup tutorials or whatever that stuff that just makes us happy, right? We want to give it back for people to wonder, to live, to imagine, to experience deep relationship with God and others instead. And so we're on the track. We're on 2 billion or something like that. That's now.
Unbelievable. So how do you just calculate that based on what the normal, like what you probably would have done on a smartphone averages back to what you're doing on?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit of fuzzy math. Definitely some assumptions built in, but it's like we know what the average screen time usage is, and we know what the screen time usage of the people that use Wise Phone is, and subtract the two, multiply it out, and every month the counter goes up.
My entrepreneur brain goes right to, I think you need to launch a sister company called like Wise Time. And it's literally like, we're going to mail you a box of games, and we're going to mail you. My wife and I talked about, we think there are people doing this, but you go to a restaurant and you look around and go, does anyone get that you don't have to have a device with your kid in the restaurant? Like see those little sugar packets? I can make a really 2-story apartment house out of those things, because I learned when I was a kid at the restaurant. The Cracker Barrel little, golf tee game. What if you put that in a box and send it to a parent, like this genius idea? Here's a box of Legos. Take these with you to a restaurant.
Oh my gosh.
So, I think, I said it not to be disparaging of families, but it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do all this time? I got an idea. Analog living, people, here it is.
No, I love it. And you're alluding to the boredom effect, is that when you're bored, you actually fill that space.
So creativity happens.
Yes, exactly. And I've even seen this even within Wise Phone. Like for a while there, we had a kid, all they had on their phone was messaging. That was it.
Yeah.
Like one app. And they had their friends, and they would text each other song lyrics, like 2 or 3 song lyrics. And it became a game that they played of like trying to guess what song it was. And then it'd be like, how many words do I have to add in order for you to finally figure out what song this is? And that was a super tiny world that they gave to their friend. But yet within this, in a sense, it's a micro social network, one-on-one interaction. But anyways, I love the idea of these small worlds that you can explore.
And even as you're describing that, again, I think we want to go all or none. And I mentioned earlier, there's a point where just the fact you're on an electronic device is not ideal. I mean, ideally, you'd be out playing, but there's a point where you can interact on a device, and you should if it's within a more analog type of thing, like doing song lyrics, versus literally being, programmed by big tech that is dripping at the most complex scientific level the inner workings of your brain. I mean, that's different than just, let me share some song lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, Paul wrote letters to churches. He used the technology of the day, and he wasn't there physically in person, and he wrote stuff down and said, here you go. Well, those letters have profoundly changed the world. Yeah. So we don't have to reject technology. Yeah, it's not just all anti-bad, but we do have to intentionally parse out. And Paul even said in his letters, it is less ideal that I'm not here with you in person. He recognized there were consequences to it. Sure. But yet he still did it anyways. And we can recognize that there's consequences to this stuff.
And that answers that question that is, so often that the parents ultimately, when all is said and done, want to put their head on the pillow and hear, well done, good and faithful parent. You don't want to, look back and have this sense of, I messed up, there's regrets, God is gracious and faithful and all of that. And yet sometimes the fear is I've not allowed them on any kind of technology, and they're not going to be ready for the real world kind of an argument. So what I love about this too is no, they get how to, hit return button and navigate here in a basic way, but they've been protected from the dark side of the tech, which is a razor's edge you're walking, which is pretty amazing. So what advice do you have just here in the final few moments for parents who are trying to make a leap out of tech, where maybe their kids are young and they've kicked the can way down the road and they're living the postman's pledge, but at some point they've got to make that decision? What are just some good steps for parents to take in terms of evaluating what's right and when for their own children? You alluded to that before. Maybe just say one more piece about that, because it's a big question. It's like, when is my child actually ready? What would they need to, what evidence would you need to see in that child to say, okay, I think you can handle this?
Man, if I could leave parents with a hopeful piece of advice here, is that God has given you a wonderful sense of intuition, and there's enough research coming out right now, and I think the world is starting to talk about some of the problems. But the challenge I see right now is the gap of parents stepping into solutions with courage and boldness. And I've talked to kids, and I've read the research, and there is a yearning, an outcry in our souls, and we know what we need, and you know what you need. You know what your kids need. And my advice to you would be to just lean into that with courage and conviction, and who cares what the world thinks? Act on it, and I promise that will have fruit in your life. Yeah. And so just, even if you've in your mind, screwed it up. Like, whatever. Give yourself grace, forgive yourself, move on, and be like, I have now since learned, dear kid or dear me, that this is really not the way it should be. And take away a phone or just like, I mean, that sounds
be the parent. Yeah.
That sounds terrifying, but literally live up to your God-given mandate to be a parent and take responsibility for this thing that is technology. And I can guarantee you there's some conviction that you have right now. And I say just act on it with boldness and courage and unapologetically. Don't worm your way around and be like, oh, like just own it with confidence. That'd be my conviction.
Well, I love the idea of maybe start with yourself, because that's going to be the problem is like, here, kid, have this while I'm over here, you know.
Whole family rules are really nice.
It's like, really good. Hey,
no one can have the phone at the dinner table, including me. No one can have phones in the bedroom, including me, or any screens in the bedroom. Like, and it's the.
Well, and I love your point again. You're not. This is like, everybody take a breath. You're not hurting your child. You're actually protecting them. And I back to our comments earlier about smoking. I really think time will tell that it was the wisest thing we could have done, was to step up, say something about it. You know, you don't want to miss a window that's right now.
And they want it too. I ask kids, what's one thing you would tell your parents? And this was an anonymous written down survey, if you could tell them anything. And I got response after response of, Mom and Dad, you have no idea how many terrible pictures I get. Or, Mom and Dad, you have no idea how many social media accounts I have or how many YouTube accounts I have. You don't know what hopped into me on Roblox the other day. And all of them sum up to, you should do something. You should lean into this. You should love me. That is the universal aggregate outcry of kids right now. And so lean into that, even if they're not saying it, even if they'll become an iMad kid and throw it at you. You know, I actually think deep down inside they know it, they want it, they crave it, they want that love from you. And so act on it.
And so the whole fear of they're going to go off to college and their kids are going to have phones and they're going to discover the full social media and they're going to go crazy.
I mean, do build resilience within them, but that's character building. That's not tactics here.
All right, Chris, so just for folks who are listening, this sounds really exciting. We're going to put in the show notes links to Wise Phone. They can learn more, but just totally practical. If you're using all the modern carriers, it's not going to be like, oh, this is, a bad signal, because you're using all the highest modern tech.
Yeah. We partner with Samsung hardware, so no issues there. We developed the OS and the software and the level protections around it. But wisephone.com, you can grab a device. There's a monthly subscription for the, kind of constant protections and monitorings that we have on it. But
similar to kind of any other phone you're out there paying big dollars. Do you have like a family plan you offer and that kind of thing?
I want a family plan. I have 6 kids.
I would say that's a good idea. Yeah.
I love the idea.
Yeah. But what's it worth to protect your kids? Like, most people are like, I'll write any check for that.
Yeah. So, basically, we said, hey, what's counseling worth? How much per session? You're definitely saving a lot of money here.
Yeah. I love what you're doing. Well, thanks for all the things you could be cruising on a yacht right now and forgetting the cares of the world. You said, nope, I'm gonna serve, and you were the one man God called to. Let's go launch a phone. I mean, gosh, what it is a Mount Everest, and I love what you're doing. I can't wait to see where this thing goes. And thanks for saving literally billions of people from their own demise.
I appreciate the conversation. It's been rich and good. And thanks. I mean, you've been doing this for 20, 30 years here. So you're a partner in crime here.
Well, that's right. I remember when there wasn't even a phone. Yeah, rotary phone. All right. Well, Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Basecamp Live. Be sure to check out our website, basecamplive.com, for more than 8 years of timeless episodes that you'll find helpful and encouraging, as well as the helpful resources offered on our partners page. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our partners like the Herzog Foundation. See you back next week.